it's just started off with a fever. So at that stage, they were admitting people to hospital. I had a couple of nights in hospital, and the fever went. They just gave me Panadol, and then I was back home. And probably by about day 5, I felt fine. Like I was fighting fit, a bit short of breath, but I'm an asthmatic, so you expect that. A little bit of colder weather, and I put it down to that. I think the mistake I made was that we just kept working. I mean, even at the hospital, just long days because, we've just been dealing with nightmare scenarios and trying to, deal with this issue like everybody. So I think I was a bit run down. And then by about day 8, as you say, I sort of finished that day, hopped into bed thinking if my breathing's any worse than it is now, when I wake up, I'll admit myself to hospital and go back. It wasn't, and I kept an eye on it and tried to do a bit of exercise from home, tried to eat well, and got through it. But I was in isolation for, I forget now, but about 26 days. So it dragged on, and it's, when people say it's just a flu, it's not. It just lingers, and I just think it comes back with a force, and that was my experience.
Yet again, Australia has been reminded of the importance of border control. It has been one of the reasons why we have had such an experience with the virus, unlike other countries that are interlocked or took too long to close their borders. I want to ask a question that comes out of a report which was released today by Brett Baer, who's one of the straight news people at Fox News. He claims that there are cables in the US State Department which claim that China, when the virus started, stopped planes flying out of Wuhan to other parts of China, but let planes fly out of Wuhan to the rest of the world. So, according to that logic, they were concerned enough about what happened in their own country to lock things down, but not for planes that would end up in places like Australia. Can you confirm that there is this suspicion of what happened in China?
Well, Paul, certainly I've seen those reports, and I think there needs to be a level of transparency here that we haven't seen before. If the United States has documentation, they'll produce that, or there'll be some commission of inquiry at some point. I mean, obviously our focus now at the moment is just on keeping Australians alive, keeping our economy alive, making sure that we can get kids back to school as quickly as possible. But these are legitimate and reasonable questions, and there has been a lack of transparency, and I think there will be a new arrangement in relation to people's perspective of the Communist Party of China. This is not about Chinese people, it's not about Australian Chinese people, it's about the Communist Party of China and their behaviour, their conduct. We spoke about it some months ago, in fact for a long period of time, about the foreign interference, about the cyber attacks. All of that is a very serious issue for the world now to deal with, and the United States obviously has done a significant amount of work in this space. People deserve to know, particularly the families of those who have died or those who have been very sick, deserve to know the truth, and China should assist whatever process and inquiry. They should be transparent and upfront. If they've made mistakes, confess or admit to those mistakes and allow the world to understand what has happened here, because this is not the first time that we've seen a virus out of China, and this is why there's a very significant debate about these wildlife wet markets at the moment, where you're selling bats and other wildlife, where we know that bats are easily identified as being able to transfer or to spread this disease, and there are very significant questions that need to be answered, and I think the Americans are dead right to ask the questions so that the whole world can know what has happened here, and as importantly, to make sure that we don't make these mistakes again.
Ruby Princess, the New South Wales government have now got, I think, their third inquiry. These are my words, not yours, which is, I think, they're just shopping for something that will eventually blame Border Force here. Are you fine with the role Border Force played here?
I know that there are a number of journalists, The Guardian, the ABC, etc., who want to take every opportunity to blame Border Force. Why? Because they hate Border Force, they hate me, because of our tough border protection policies, because of turning back boats, because of the fact that we've been able to stop people drowning at sea, etc. That's the genesis of their hatred of Border Force. That's not going to change, and frankly, it's water off a duck's back. But I think Border Force have done the right thing here, and we're working very closely with New South Wales Health. Everybody is under enormous, unprecedented stress, and they need to work closely together. They're doing that. As I say, we've been able to get rid of 25 vessels so far. Michael Outram's the one that's issued the directions to those companies for those vessels to leave our waters. We closed down access to our country from people coming out of Wuhan and China and elsewhere very quickly, and probably ahead of most nations. And I think that, coupled with the fact that we demanded that these vessels leave our shores as quickly as possible, has led to the fact that we're in a pretty strong position.
The last question is the one that I don't want to ask or waste any time on, but it would be stupid of me not to ask publicly. Old mate's got his book out. I have no interest in promoting it, talking about it, feeding any oxygen to it. But you're no doubt going to get asked by all and sundry, what did you think of this, what did you think of that? For everyone who is half paying attention, what is the Peter Dutton position on the Ghosts book?
Look, Paul, I'm not going to add to it. I think there's a couple of courses people can take here. One is the Julia Gillard, Tony Abbott, John Howard path, and that is to be dignified in retirement as a Prime Minister. People deserve respect, and you can take the second path, which is the Kevin Rudd path. And look, people just laugh at Kevin Rudd when he speaks now, and it's humiliating for him and no doubt for his family as well. And I just don't understand that path. So I hope Malcolm and Lucy can enjoy their retirement. I hope that people look at the history of this. I don't have any regrets. We changed leader. We didn't get Bill Shorten. We've got Scott Morrison, who I think has led us incredibly well since that time, and in particular during the course of this virus.